It's time for school days. Help for moms and dads of school-aged kids.
I tell parents, you're like a training wheel on a bike. Your job isn't to make the bike move. Your job is to keep the bike upright.
Those of us who are the true educators, we really want to be given the opportunity to educate the whole child.
We can get free college degrees based on all of the opportunities that are out here and available to our students.
Oftentimes, as parents, I think we want to protect our kids, but I think one of the greatest gifts we can give them is allow them to experience adversity.
Yeah.
Here's your host, Anita Bailey.
Well, welcome to School Days, Help for Moms and Dads of School-Aged Kids. I'm Danita Bailey. You know, I honestly feel like I'm in a bad dream. Does anyone out there feel like that? We're in this surreal situation that none of us have experienced before where we can't quite grasp what's going on. I'm usually a very productive and proactive person, but in the last few days and really the last week, I've found it hard to get up for the game. And then there's kids. On Monday, Norwegian Prime Minister Erna Solberg held a children-only press conference on the coronavirus, answering questions submitted by worried kids across the country in an effort to allay their fears. Yesterday, my 9-year-old son Jonathan had an assignment to write a one-page paper about the effect of coronavirus on his life. Now, he's my super laid-back child, and as far as I could tell, he was completely unaffected by all of this, as far as I could see, as long as he could watch YouTube Kids. So at least that's what I thought until he read me his paper.
The coronavirus makes me mad because we can't do Easter, which is supposed to be every year, but not this year. Another thing that makes me mad is that we can't go to the movie theater because I really want to see the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. And the next thing that the coronavirus makes me mad is that I can't see my family because I haven't seen my family in a long time, and I want to see them right now. Also, I miss going to school because I don't like working at home. And finally, but not least, the coronavirus makes me mad is that I can't see my teachers because the teachers is my life. I like coming to school and see my teachers all day. Life isn't fun without teachers.
I think many of our kids are feeling the way that John is feeling in various degrees. And guess what? We parents are having some pretty strong feelings ourselves. So on today's show, we will talk to two experts who have extensive experience working with kids to develop emotional wellness and will give us advice for guiding our kids through this tough time. Before we go any further, let me just say it does take a village. If you hear a great parenting tip or nugget of advice, share it with your parent friends. Facebook it, Instagram it, tweet it, link it in, and add the hashtag School Days Show and hashtag I Am School Days. And also, we want you to be a part of the show. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, give us a call at 214-444-5575. Or if you're live with us on Facebook, you can drop us a question there. So without further ado, let our Kidcasters introduce today's guests. Our first Kidcaster is Joseph Herndon, who's a 7th grade student.
Michael Flores is the owner and director of Brighter Possibilities Family Counseling. He has worked in many settings, including nonprofit, remit centers, and private practice. Brighter Possibilities currently has contracts with Tarrant County Juvenile Probation, where they provide counseling services for their youth and family. Bright Possibilities also receives court orders from the Tarrant County Court to provide counseling for their parents and children. Mr. Flores is the developer of Team Integrative Solution-Focused Therapy, designed to work with at-risk youth and treatment providers. He is a proud father of 3 children and a blessed husband. Welcome to School Days, Mr. Flores.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Michael.
you.
This is your third time, right?
It's my third time.
We like you here at school.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Our next kid caster is third grader Madeline Newcomb.
Catherine Wimbry is a licensed professional counselor intern under the supervision of Trier Lackey LPCS. She also holds a master's degree in school counseling and a bachelor's degree in social work. Catherine has worked in the field of education for over 12 years, with most of her experience being with teens and young adults. Catherine recently joined Open Gate Counseling and Consulting, where she works primarily with teens, young adults, and their families to help restore the family system. Catherine has been married to her husband Willie for 13 years, and they have 3 beautiful children. Welcome to School Days, Mrs. Wimbry.
Welcome, Catherine.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. So we had a rough going this morning trying to get going. The internet has been completely bogged down by all people doing all this distance learning and whatnot. So we are finally going. So thanks everybody for hanging in. Let's jump right in.
Okay.
So a lot of us are experiencing anxiety and traumatic events sometimes on a daily basis here with the loss of freedom and routine. And what are some of the symptoms we can expect to start seeing from our kids and in ourselves?
Is that for me or Miss Wimbry?
Just jump in whenever you want to answer.
Okay. Miss Wimbry, you can go ahead and I'll piggyback.
Can you hear us, Catherine?
I can hear you. It was going in. I thought, is Michael answering that question?
Oh, no. So I was saying, what are some of the symptoms that we can start to expect to see from our kids and from ourselves? And you can jump in, Michael,
Some of
if
the
you...
symptoms that we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
The video stopped a little bit. So you're asking some of the symptoms that we're starting to see from some of our kids?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So kids naturally feeds off. And so if adults are feeling fearful, if they're feeling a bit maybe would pretty much experience the same thing. It will manifest it in a different way. Fear might look more to be more irritated, sad. Those sadness, maybe difficult sleeping. Kind of some of what we're seeing.
Yeah,
Michael, you can go ahead and.
Okay. Thank you. I think some of the things that I've been seeing and some of the things I've been hearing from other kids, it's all about how the kids are dealing with it. Every kid is a little different, so not all of them do it the same. One of the things that I've seen in my own children is just a lot of uncertainty, and that's where the anxiety is coming from. They're not sure what to expect, and it's because us adults don't know what to expect. And so we're all kind of playing everything by ear, and the anxieties, I think, are increased by all of us watching the news and trying to figure out what's happening. And so all the kids are hearing over and over and over and over again is the coronavirus and how these many people died and this many people are sick and we got to stay at home now. We can't go out and we've got to go out before. And so the kids just don't know what to expect, and they need to see us more at least put on the side that we're going to be all right and stabilize. And I think this is a great time to schedule time for you to watch the news and time not to watch it and just be with your kids. And that to me will lower the anxiety if you just make that personal time with your children and schedule the time of when you're going to watch the news. And maybe you can do it when the kids are in bed. That will probably eliminate some of the anxieties. But the anxiety is just coming from a lack of understanding of what to expect and what's going on. And they feel anxious because we're anxious. And that's really where I think it's coming from.
Yeah, very good point. Michael and Catherine, how are you guys supporting your patients right now, since you can't actually see them?
Well, I'm doing telehealth through a system that we use, which is HIPAA compliant. We have a portal that clients can link into, and then they are able to do kind of what we're doing today with you. Clients are able to do that with us. The challenge was working with the littles. So kids younger than 10, we didn't know how they were going to respond to doing it video, but I got a call from one of my counselors yesterday, and she said that she had a 6-year-old kiddo that she was working with, and it actually went quite well. And one of the things that we're doing creatively is we're actually talking through the parents to the kid. So we're actually almost coaching the parent what to do therapeutically with the child, which is kind of a new idea, which I think is awesome. So what we would be doing in the office with the child, we tell the parent, hey, have them draw a picture of this, have them. And so the parent's actually doing the treatment in a sense. So that's kind of been different, but that's how we're doing it right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Catherine, can you hear me? We have a little bit of delay, kind of like she's in another country. Catherine, how are you, as a school counselor, how are you supporting students?
Okay, so the way we're treating clients right now is mostly by telehealth.
She's talking, but we cannot hear her.
What Michael is saying, giving parents, coaching them along the way, but also just being available for them to help them process what's going on right now in their world. So most of it is being done by telehealth.
Okay, Catherine, we can't hear you anymore. Something has happened to your audio.
I hear her on my end, Donita.
You do?
I do.
Okay. Well, that's really bizarre. What did she say?
She said she's doing telehealth.
I can't see her anymore.
She's doing telehealth. Okay.
She's doing telehealth, and they're reaching out to the kiddos that way and accessing their clients in that form.
Okay, great. This is a funny episode.
Michael, tell her
I may have to have you translate.
Yeah.
Because I can see her, I can see she can hear me, but
I'm texting her the questions too, so that way it's easier
Oh.
because of the delay.
Man, you rock. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
So there are some scary stories out there. I have had to stop looking at people's accounts of their experience with coronavirus because people are like journaling the days and what's happening, and then you just you hear some people that are having a more mild experience with it, and then you hear some that just sound awful. And so there's some really scary stories out there. I know kids are seeing these posts too. And so what kind of things can we do to calm their fears?
Well, I think the most important thing to calm people's fears is I don't think you're going to make the fear go away. I think there's two things that people deal with on a daily basis, which is fear and faith. Faith is the reason why we move, and fear is the reason why we stand still in most cases. So I think the way we calm the fear is we let people know that they have a choice, that we can either be faithful and we keep our head up and we go forward, and it's really about what you listen to and look for. There are two different types of stories that you can listen to. One is about the problem, and one's about what we're doing about the solution. So if people want to really calm their fears, they have to be more selective of what they're listening to, whether it be on the radio, TV, people who they talk with. I have family members in my own family that just love to make things worse than what they are. They like to exaggerate the problem. And I've elected just not to talk to them as much during this time. I just kind of check in. I love you. How you been? And then I check out quicker, than I did checking in, just because
Right.
I don't need the additional stress of hearing what's wrong. Not that I'm avoiding or ignoring it. It's just a way of saying I have to protect my peace, in a sense. As a friend of mine, Trent Shelton, would say, protect your peace. So that's a way to do that, I think.
Yeah. I think also getting news from reliable
So I
sources. I
think
have people
going along with
texting
what
me
you say,
things
we have
from
to make sure
somebody
that you're
that they
protecting your
heard or
peace as
somebody
well,
that did
limiting a
something,
lot
and
of the information
I'm
that's
just trying
coming in.
to avoid
I
all of
once
those
heard somebody say
moments
that
of
you can't
hearsay
unhear things and
because
you
some
can't
of them
unsee
are
things. And so
just
you
not
have to
true
be very
Yeah.
selective of
and
what you're allowing
just
to come
add
into
to
your
the
home
anxiety that I
and
already
what your
feel about
kids are
this.
allowing, what you're allowing your kids to see and hear.
Is Catherine
So
talking?
She's
just
talking
making
now.
sure
Yes.
that parents have a
Go ahead, Catherine. We're listening.
so make them have a good understanding of what you can control the narrative that you're sharing with.
Did you hear that, Donita?
Nope, can't hear her at
You
all.
can hear. She was. If I can hear her, I'm wondering if our listeners can hear her. Maybe one of our listeners
They
can hear her.
can. They're telling me that they can.
Okay, perfect. Then
Mhm.
okay. Then yeah, she's done.
Okay.
Can they hear me?
So,
Yes, Donita. Actually, Catherine, the listeners can hear you, and as long as you can hear Donita,
Okay, good.
Donita can't hear you, but everyone else in the world can.
Okay.
That's not a problem.
Yeah.
I can hear Danita.
Donita's like, how do I use that on my husband? How do I get that on David? I can't hear him, but everyone else can.
Oh my goodness. Oh, coronavirus humor. All right. So, how do we talk to our kids about the importance of self isolation because of pre existing conditions? So, like, for example, my 12-year-old has DJ has asthma. And so we have been trying to help him to understand that no, you can't go to the store with your dad. And, we really need to, we just started here in Tarrant County the shelter in place yesterday or tonight or this at midnight. So prior to that, we had been out, in the neighborhood and doing things like that. But we're trying to help him to understand, look, it's particularly dangerous for you to get this disease.
Okay. Catherine, if you want to take the first part of that question, go ahead, and I'll go second.
Okay, I didn't hear the question.
Oh, the question.
I can't hear Danita.
Donita, okay.
Yeah.
Donita, do you want me to text her the question, or did you want to text it to her?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, no, I can't text her.
Okay. How can we make sure I got your question right, Donita? It's how can we tell our kids that have
with these pre-existing conditions? Yeah.
Okay. Okay. How can we tell our kids with pre-existing conditions how to deal with the coronavirus? Okay.
Somebody else on Facebook Live, give me a thumbs up to let me know if you can still hear her.
Conditions,
Catherine, there you go.
How
Yeah.
to deal with coronavirus.
Yes.
Okay, so I think for one, if there is not if there hasn't been an ongoing conversations about their pre-existing conditions, then being honest with them about why we're having to take the extra steps of washing our hands, making sure that our homes are extra clean, and so I think that's one way. If there has not been an ongoing conversation, then this is the perfect time to start having those conversations with your children about their health risk and why it's important that we're doing everything that we're doing in order to keep them healthy and keep them safe.
Okay. Thank you, Catherine. I'll piggyback on Catherine. I think that's a great first step. And in some of the kiddos, it depends. I mean, every kiddo, like I said earlier in the show, every kiddo's a little different on how they take the information you get. If you were asking me or telling me as a child, my first thing is why? We got to wash hands. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because stay clean. Why? And I'm going to keep doing that to you, and the parents get frustrated. I think sometimes it helps to tell the kids what they can do versus what they can't do. Sometimes kids are more receptive to that. And if you say, hey, we can go to the park or we can go to the grocery store, we can go to the grocery store as long as we have a face shield on. Well, why do we have to have a face shield? Well, that's just so we can protect ourselves from germs. And then you maybe can do a science experiment with germs. I've noticed parents do that little pepper one where they put pepper in the water and then they take a little bit of dish soap and they put it in the water and it makes the pepper separate, do the electrons in the soap. So stuff like that. And you can make it interactive and almost like it's learning, and the kids will actually do better with it. But it is different, and I think you can try both approaches. I don't think either one of them is wrong. It depends on how receptive your child is to it. But if that one doesn't work with telling them this is why we're doing all these precautions, and you're just getting the why, you might try and say, well, this is what I think we can do versus just telling them what we can't do and why we can't do it.
Right. That's good. That's good. Last week we did a show about helping your kids deal with loss. And we had Bradley Vincent on, who's a grief counselor. And one of the things he said that left an imprint on me is that he can no longer say to his grandson, because they lost his little sister, that nothing bad will ever happen to you. And so I think that during this time, those kids that have experienced the loss of a loved one, or, I have a friend whose house burned down a few years ago. So when you've experienced something that's tragic like that, they may be taking what's happening right now particularly hard. So what do you recommend saying to them?
I'm going to send a question over to Catherine. What do we recommend saying? I might repeat it then. What do we recommend saying to children who've experienced a loss, and you can't say to them, nothing bad will ever happen to you, because that would be a lie in a sense. So what do we say to a child, that is concerned about, what's happening with the coronavirus? Is that what you're asking, Donita? Okay. Did you understand the question, Catherine?
What do we say to them about a loss?
Right.
Are they asking questions about a loss?
Like if, children have experienced a loss of a loved one or something, and that was a grief counselor that came on the show and had stated that he can no longer say, you'll never experience anything bad or nothing bad will befall you. So what do we tell those children? How do we talk to those children that have experienced loss, dealing with this? Because it may feel like a loss to them. They may be grieving through this.
I think if they're bringing the conversation up, it's okay to talk to them about it. Maybe sharing some of your happiest moments with the loved ones who have passed away, and then giving them an opportunity with you memories they have of those loved ones as well. I don't think that we should, maybe bring the topic up if they're not talking about it, because sometimes as adults we tend to kind of get off our emotions, or seem to want our kids to experience what we're feeling emotionally. And so I think we have to be careful of that. But if they're bringing up the topic of losing a loved one this time, talk about the good memories that we have about those loved ones. And if they're not talking about it, then I wouldn't necessarily bring that up.
Okay. Yeah. You didn't hear any of that, did you, Janita?
Nope.
Okay.
What do you have to say?
Did everyone else say that they can hear her, though?
They can hear her.
Okay, good. Okay. That's a lot to repeat. It was good. But I can't repeat all that.
I can't wait to hear it.
Exactly. And piggybacking off Catherine there, I think when we're dealing with grief, to me, I lost my mom at 4 to suicide. And so that was something that I had to deal with as well. And so anytime I came across something that was uncertain for me, I would crave my mother. And that wasn't a bad thing. It was just one of the things that I wanted, because we don't like having a loss. And I think the thing is, I think the grief counselor said it well, is we're all going to experience things that are troubling and things that are difficult, and we're all going to go through loss at some time in life. I mean, the one thing that's true is taxes and death, right? So I think the one thing we do with kiddos right now is we just say, hey, look, we do know that loss can happen. We know that things can happen. But would it make you feel better if you knew that we were going to do everything in our power to ensure that all the good things can happen, so that any bad thing that happens, we can counteract it? And just kind of the reassurance is what can be helpful. It's not a promise, and I think that's the difference. Words like "I promise" have to be careful. We have to be careful. I promise nothing will happen to you. You say, "I will do everything in my power to take care of you, protect you, keep you safe, that I can." And as long as we both are on the same page with that and working together, I think we can be okay. And I think you can maybe say things in that nature, but it's hard because none of us can predict the future. So that's what's difficult. So just the reassurance is probably the most important thing, rather than giving them a promise.
Yeah. I'd like to know how transparent we should be with our kids about how we're feeling.
That's a great question. Catherine, she asked, how transparent should we be with the way that we're feeling with the children?
Okay. So about our fears and what we're experiencing
Yes,
as
ma'am.
well.
Yes. How
Okay.
transparent should we be with our feelings?
I think we have to be very careful because, again, kids are feeling what we are feeling. And so if let's say if they're fearful, I mean, they're experiencing some fear, it's okay to go ahead and, you know what, there have been moments where I'm scared too, and then giving them some tools on how to help them conquer that fear. So giving them some way, because this will be the first time that they're ever going to experience fear or anxiety. The other right now, giving them tools on how do you help yourself when you are feeling those emotions. I think that's a good way to kind of help in this situation right now.
That's awesome. I know you can't hear, and her answers are great.
I'll listen to them later.
Okay. No, and I'll just kind of repeat what Catherine said that I thought was really powerful, that I really enjoyed. She said, the transparency and really just kind of letting the kids know how we're dealing with the fear, not necessarily what keeps us afraid, but how we deal with it can sometimes be a good thing to pass along to them. I think a lot of kids learn to grieve through our grief. They watch us. If a lot of men that don't cry, daddy didn't let them cry, or daddy didn't cry, so I can't cry. And it's one of those things we model for our children. So I think to me, one of the factors I use is I wait for my kids to ask questions. I think when my kids ask, that means that they're interested in knowing, and I think that's when you can use your transparency. But you don't want to bring in in my opinion, you don't want to bring in what makes you afraid. You want to bring in what makes you faithful, what you believe in, because that's that security. It's okay to say, hey, I'm a little worried about this, but this is what I'm doing to counteract that. This is how I'm working on it. And if your kids see that you're always thinking about how to make things better or how to solve it, then your kids my hope is that that's modeled to them in a way that they become problem solvers with their own things. And I think you just kind of walk that journey with them. And I would only answer what they're interested in. I don't give them any more, any less. If a kid asks a closed-ended question, go and give them a closed-ended answer. If they say, hey, are we going to be okay? And that's a yes or no question. Yeah, we're going to be all right. But if they say, Dad, do you think we're going to be okay? Because I don't really feel like we're going to be okay. And I'm really scared. And say, well, I hear that you're a little scared. What can I do to help you feel more comfortable? Or how can I help you know that we're going to be okay? And so that way you're just reassuring them and reestablishing that security that, we're going to get through this together. Mm-hmm. So I think it's okay to an extent, but I would be cautious and say that only answer what's asked. And that's kind of a good indicator of what you can share and not share, because kids will either, if they're really little, they'll act it out. And if they're a little older, they'll ask you questions.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's just sage advice. No matter what you're going through, is don't give them more information than what they're asking for. Because, if your 6-year-old comes up to you and says, Mommy, where do babies come from? Your answer could be babies come from God. You don't have to go into the whole the whole story of where babies come from and how they're made.
Correct. Yeah.
Michael, what are you, or both of you, well, you'll have to tell her.
Sure.
What are you telling your parents of children that have mental illness, that either have, extreme anxiety or anything that they could be dealing with that might make this particularly hard for them? Yeah.
What are we telling our parents that have children with mental illness?
And what I'll say is, and I can't remember if I told you this off the air or on the air, but one of my sons has very extreme anxiety, and he feels like the walls are closing in on him, and we're really having to daily calm him down and daily kind of bring him back to center. And so for parents who have kids that have similar situations, what are you telling them as far as, because they can't even go
to sorry, Danny, Catherine asked, she's still talking.
Oh, okay. Because they can't come in to see you on regular appointments and whatnot. So kind of how are you talking to parents about how they should deal with this time.
Hello?
Can you go by the house? He can't get in. The screen door's locked.
Oh my gosh.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
I'm sorry, I had to step off for a quick second. Did
No
you
worries.
ask that question one more time?
Well, what are you telling parents of children that have some sort of mental illness to watch for to prepare their kids for the changes?
What are we telling our parents that have children with mental illness to watch for?
Yeah, and
Okay.
just kind of make sure that they're not, getting into a really bad place.
And to make sure they're not getting into a really bad place. Did you hear that, Catherine?
Okay, what are we telling our parents with kids with mental illness to watch for? But I didn't get that.
Yes. What should we be telling our children with mental illness? What should parents be telling their children with mental illness to watch for?
No, I'm talking about parents that are dealing with children. Yeah, what should we tell the parents as far as how to deal with them?
What should we tell the parents on how to deal with children that may have mental illness?
Since they can't go to their appointments and they're
they
locked
can't go
in the house.
They can't go to their appointments and they're locked in their house. What should we tell the parents?
Okay.
On how to deal with their children with mental illness?
So I think one, knowing their children and how much they can take in. So with our kids that have that are limited with understanding, you might have to use more words. You have to show them, but that's kind of so how to share with parents. And I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question correct.
Yes, it's what. Yeah, you're doing okay. It's what are we telling our parents on how to help their children that have mental illness? Like, what advice might we give a parent?
Okay, so if a kid is of medication, we want to continue to have them taking their medications. Reach out to their, if they have a therapist, make sure that you're continuing on with reaching out to them. Also, making sure that you are keeping your routine as normal as you can for they function with so if or they eat lunch at a certain time, try to keep the schedule as normal as you can for them will definitely help. But making sure that you are reaching out to their therapist or teachers, if they have a good relationship with those teachers as well, that would help combat some of what the emotions that if they're missing their teacher.
Yes. So to sum up, Donita, she said keeping a normal routine, making sure they're taking their medication as prescribed, reaching out to the therapist in regards to the possibility of getting to have a meeting with them, and then also their teachers, if they have good rapport with their teachers, to try to see how involved the teachers can be.
Okay, that's all good. Yeah. You have anything to add to that?
That's great. I think that anything that keeps the routine normal, I think is very helpful because that gives the kids that stability. And of course, not all mental illness is the same either. That's what makes our job so complex.
Right.
I think the most important thing parents can do is model themselves. The parents can, this is the advice I would probably give a parent. I say, the more you model the stability, the more you model your ability to stay with a good attitude and be positive about this, the easier it is for your child. It's not going to be easy for any kid, but it's going to make it easier. It's almost like you're alleviating, no different than like you take an Advil. You're not getting rid of the headache, you're alleviating the pain of the headache, right? So it's the same thing. We can take different approaches as parents to alleviate the blow of what they're dealing with, but we're not going to take it away. We don't take away fear. We don't take away problem. What we do is it's about how we respond to it, and that is influential on how things are going to be played out. So kids that are dealing with mental illness, you have to understand they have a different way of approaching situations, and so we have to kind of meet them where they are, but we have to model for them ways that we are staying secure and faithful in this process, because that ultimately is what they're going to base their security on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that would be my answer off that.
That's good. What are some of the physical things that we can do to help alleviate stress?
What are the physical things that we can do to help
Mhm.
alleviate stress?
Yeah, I know mindfulness has been a big thing in the
Mhm.
last couple of years. So can you explain what mindfulness is and how we do that?
Can we explain what mindfulness is and how we do that?
Hmm.
Okay. Catherine, you want me to go first?
Can you repeat the question? I didn't hear it.
Sure. How can, what is mindfulness? And can we elaborate on what that is? And how can we personally deal with stress during this time?
Okay. So, dealing with stress during this time again, making sure that you're aware of your symptoms, making sure that you're aware of, if you're taking in too much stress on your body, giving yourself time to time in the space to really take time away. So whether that looks like, you need to go outside for a run, or, maybe put the kid down to bed a little bit earlier so that you have a mental break, away from the family, away from the kids, exercising, spending time, quiet time by yourself, meditating, reading a devotional, or listening to something inspirational, of ways that you can take care of yourself, and in turn help with taking care of the rest of your family during these times.
Right. So that was, there's not much to add to that, Donita. She was talking about, reading a book, taking a walk, doing
Mm,
things that you enjoy as a way of alleviating your own stress. And then the first answer to that was being aware of your own stress and that you're stressed out.
mm,
So I think
mm,
that's really important, and that kind of piggybacks off the idea of mindfulness. Mindfulness, to me, is kind of more the idea that you are more aware of what's happening with you as well. Kind of, it's almost like you're letting your subconscious become conscious. And so, to me, I think that the more aware you can become of what's going on, the more you can respond. And
Right.
the way to deal with the stress when it shows up is, I think stress is, it's different for everyone. In the counseling I've done with people, what could make one person stressful versus another is different. For one person, that's not stressful at all, and for another person, it could be completely stressful. And
mhm,
so, I think the way we deal with it is how we define it. And so you have to define every situation in a way that's solvable. And so one way that I've alleviated stress in the past is asking myself, do I look at this problem as unsolvable? Because if I do, then I stress out about it because I don't feel like I have
mhm,
control.
mhm.
Um, so you have to define the problem as as it's solvable. And when we do that, I think that's how we become. It can be more stress relieving that way. I also think that what, piggybacking off Catherine, is the mindfulness part is just becoming aware of what you're feeling. And when we don't know what we're feeling, it's okay to say, "Hey, I feel awkward," or "I feel weird. I don't know what this
Right.
is," and talk through it. And sometimes that usually gives you more insight on what you are feeling, even though it may not be definable yet. So I think that's how we can do it.
Yeah. I think another thing, she mentioned self-care. You said she mentioned self-care, yes?
She
Yeah, I
did.
think that's so important because, when you get on an airplane, they say make sure you put your oxygen mask on first. And so often we forget to take care of ourselves because we're so busy trying to take care of everybody else. But I would say try not to. It's funny to say this, but I was going to say try not to isolate. We're kind of doing that anyway, but um, as parents, we need to make sure that we're still reaching out to one another and having community. I know I'm a part of like 4 group texts right now. Like my phone does not stop dinging, but I have a couple of groups of moms that are talking all day long. And then I have a family group text, and we're all just trying to reach out to one another and make sure that we're okay, and provide comedy in the midst of the storm and whatnot. But it just makes it so much more difficult when you don't reach out and continue to have community as much as you can under the circumstances.
Absolutely. She's talking about having community as much as we can under the circumstances, and how the airplane example was awesome, Donita, about how we were supposed to put our face mask on first before we help others around us. So, kind of the idea of self care.
Did she say she heard you? I have a
Not sure.
question. Oh, okay, because she's putting her finger up to her ear like she can't hear.
Okay.
Ask her if you can, because her daughter is doing something kind of unique for kids to help build community. So my question is, what kind of things can kids do to foster community in spite of the fact that we can't gather?
What can we do to foster community in spite of the idea that we can't get together? Did you hear that, Catherine?
For kids.
Okay, what can we do to foster community?
Yes. What can we do to foster
so-
community for kids, in spite of the idea that we can't get together?
Okay. How many people utilize their creative juices? There's been so many neat things going on right now. I think being aware of, letting them know that hey, just because we can't celebrate certain things right now, or we can't, see our friends, there are still creative ways that adults are finding to keep some type of community with their children and themselves. So I've seen celebrating birthdays. I've seen dads sing happy birthday in the street. Seeing parents go and write, or other kids go and write, encourage notes to their friends in their driveways, or the teachers, parading down the streets, so that their kids can see their faces. So I think there's a lot of people are using their creativity to continue that sense of community for themselves as well as their children.
Catherine was saying that the community has really done a phenomenal job of being creative as a way of developing a sense of community. And she used examples like the parades that the schools are doing down the streets, the birthdays where they're doing birthday messages for people with birthdays. And there's a couple other examples, but those are the main ones that I picked up on about how the community is becoming creative and sharing with other people their joy, and spreading it that way as best we can. I think the funny thing is, in kind of answering the question, is I think those are probably more creative than I even came up with myself. I thought that was amazing what the schools are doing. The parades, people standing in their sunroofs and waving at the kids down the block. Because when we go to the stores, I don't know if anybody else is getting the same experience I get, but we all look at each other like we all have coronavirus as we're walking by each other because of the distance and the awkwardness. And so it's almost like we need to do that hand wave that they used to do in that movie with Sylvester Stallone, where you kind of go like this, but you don't touch, and you kind of go like that. I forgot what that movie was, Demolition Man or something like that. But someone made a joke about how we have to use the 3 seashells now instead of toilet paper because we're out. But it's just this idea that the way you create a sense of community, in my opinion, is keep things light. Smile at people when you see them. It's okay to give a wave. My dad, when we used to drive through our community, as we were passing by each other in the cars, my dad would lift his hand up on the steering wheel and kind of do a little semi wave, even if he didn't know them. They were just you're in my neighborhood, so I'll just give you a wave. Maybe you live in here. I don't know. Just letting people know, hey, we're all in this together. I was mowing my grass the other day, and a lady that I'd never seen before drove by, and she was kind of driving slow through the neighborhood, and she looked over at me and she gave me this big wave and big smile. And I was like, cool. I just waved right back at her. I don't care if I scout my yard or not. I just wave right at her. And it's being courteous of one another and giving grace to each other. And I think that's the best way to create that.
Yeah.
Right.
Mike.
Catherine's saying something. I can hear you, Catherine.
I think the kids are continuing, a lot of, especially our teenagers, they're so getting with their friends. I think they're and thank goodness for, platforms such as Zoom, where they have the ability of another. I know my 3-year-old, his teacher called the other day up, just by seeing her and his friends. And so I think those are really good ways. We're definitely seeing a lot more people who are rocking their dog, running and things. And so I think that's definitely another great way to, to meet even though you have to stay the 6 feet apart. But that's a great way of getting to know, knowing who really lives down.
Right. So, Danita, what Catherine was saying is that kids are using their ability to use FaceTime and Zoom and different
Mm-hmm.
platforms to stay connected to one another, and that's really kind of the neat thing. She was talking about her 3-year-old, doing something similar. Just everyone staying connected using digital platforms, which is so. I mean, isn't it amazing that in a time that we're in, that we're able to do that now? And Catherine's just saying,
Right.
these kids are using these wonderful ways to stay connected to their friends that way and see each other. And she's absolutely right. And I'll tell you what, this is a great time. If you don't know how to do digital stuff, man, ask your kids. They know, and let them show you, and you'll be so amazed at, like, I didn't know we could do this. And the kids will feel cool because they're teaching their parents something. Well, kids love to teach their parents. Parents don't realize that, but kids like to say,
Right.
I know something my mom and dad don't know, and they want to teach us. Let them
Mm-hmm.
show
Right.
you. This is a great time for that.
Yeah.
So Catherine had a good point, and that's the point I think she was making, is about the creativity that kids are using nowadays.
Yeah, and there's something called Kids Facebook Messenger. Oh my goodness, my daughter loves it. She and her bestie across the street, even before any of this was happening, would blow up my phone all the time because Christina doesn't have her own device, so I had to download it onto my phone, which was really a big old pain. But they don't just talk like normal. There's games that they play. It's like a Snapchat where you can put like a crown on somebody's head and these dances and things like that. So it's really super cute. But yeah, I took it off my phone eventually because I can't. I was always getting phone calls from my kids' friends. But anyway, that's an app that is pretty amazing and something that your kids will like if they have their own device. Um, did Catherine talk about her daughter who has a book club on Zoom?
Not yet, but I can ask her to.
Yeah, can you ask her?
Catherine, can you talk about your daughter that has a book club on Zoom?
Okay. Yes. So, well, it became an idea. We're trying to figure out before all of the schoolwork came through, what could we do, to keep the kids connected. And so, a couple of our parents started talking, and one mom said, "Hey, can we, what about, them reading a book together and, having a discussion on." And so, which these are separate questions, and my daughter sends out a text. We created the Zoom, and my daughter sends out a text with the Zoom code, and everyone's able to join in during that time. So, like they'll meet at 2:00 on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays to discuss what they have read. They typically spend the first maybe 20 minutes discussing the book and answering questions, and then the remainder of that time they're able to socialize and just kind of catch up on what everybody's doing. And so I thought that was a really neat idea. If anything, sometimes they don't get a whole lot accomplished, but I think being able to see each other and talk to each other has definitely been a huge blessing.
Thank you, Catherine. Did you need to answer anything, Donita? Was there something specific you wanted to hear from that response?
No.
Okay.
It looked like it was good from your
Yeah.
facial expressions.
That was awesome. That's really cool. I mean, I think that I'll just say this: the most impressive thing was that you have a platform that kids use to have. It's almost like a book club where they're discussing things together and they're talking about the book. And I know, Catherine, you said it's not as productive as it probably should be, but that's why I smiled. But at the same time, I mean, these are children that are doing it. What a great idea. And I don't know how that idea has spawned, but I do know that is a cool way to stay connected to your friends and still make it educational. So, what a phenomenal idea.
And Michael, I love what you said, that we are really blessed to have these opportunities. I'm 45 this year, so this is the first time in really our generation that we've had something that has been this catastrophic in this globally. We didn't live through the Depression. We didn't live through being overseas and being bombed during World War II, and things like that. But we're in a time now where we have all these luxuries, including being able to still be connected in the ways that we are in the midst of, being isolated. So we are, we had somebody on our show, um, Stacey Danford, who is a gratitude expert. And if you didn't hear that episode, I'd highly recommend it. But she talked about just changing your brain, rewiring your brain through gratitude. And we're living through a time right now that is very difficult, and especially if you're a healthcare worker, you're overworked and things are really hard, and times are scary. But there's a lot of good that's coming out of this. You talked about, Michael, that your neighbor, you met your neighbor and waved. I did the same thing. I had already met my neighbor, but he was mowing his lawn, and I drove by, and I decided to stop because he actually lives alone. He's a widower, and I wanted to make sure that he was okay. So if we count our blessings and really have gratitude in the midst of some really hard times, I think that will help us with our mental wellness as well.
That's a great point, Donita. And Catherine, she's talking about the need for gratitude during this time and how important gratitude is for even our mental wellness at this time.
Right.
And she says, right.
Okay. I'd love to know from Catherine, you're going to have to relay this.
Sure.
I've seen some parents go really hardcore with the distance learning in the past few weeks. How can we balance? Like, this is a really great opportunity for us to rest because, good gravy, as Americans, we just go hard all the time. We don't really like the word rest. It almost is like a weakness. But this is an opportunity for us to take advantage of that and maybe not feel so guilty about it. So, what would you say to parents who just feel like they've got to keep such a rigid schedule and that are really worried about their kids getting behind? I'm so sorry. That was a really long thing for you to relay.
I'll try to relay that as easy as I can. What basically, Catherine, she's saying, what do we relay to our parents that are going so hardcore with like their education and everything else? And we live in a time where as Americans, all we do is just go hardcore hard all the time. And so what can we tell our parents, or what should we be relaying to them and how they're responding to this, and maybe slowing down a little bit? Would be the assumption from that question. How do we do that and not be so hardcore?
Okay. Giving us the opportunity, to slow down. I see it as a blessing because I think so many families, I know on my end, our daily lives are go, go, go. And so we have to, now we have an opportunity to really slow down, enjoy our kids. I wouldn't push, there's so much information coming out right now and it can be overwhelming. So I definitely wouldn't go hardcore with, keeping the school schedule right now. Allow your kids, to sleep in if they need to, and wake up. And school looks different, for some people. If you're a parent that works, at night, then, school might look different for, you helping your child with, continuing their schooling might look different for you. I know for me and my 3 kids, I have a 3-year-old and I have a 4th grader and a 7th grader. My 7th grader is very independent, and my 4th grader needs a little bit of help. Well, I can't teach the 3-year-old and the 4th grader at the same time, and so therefore I'm just kind of balancing what works for you and your family. I think that limits a lot of the stress that that families are feeling, and if you don't get you have the opportunity to whenever you want to. So let's say if you don't do school Monday, you can catch up on Tuesday. So just whatever schedule works for you, don't make it too stressful for yourself and your family. Your kids are already, feeling a whole lot of stress. And so just taking a step back, enjoying them, enjoying, the time that you have with them, getting to know them, creating family circles. In my family, that's one of the things that we do a lot is, we have these family circles where we're able to, just kind of go around and share, the concerns that we have or things that we're happy or we're excited about. And so that gives them the space to really talk about, hey, this is what I like about what's going on right now. This is what's really frustrating. Enjoy the time with your family. I know that things seem stressful, but just taking a step back and really truly enjoying your children and your family, because those are times that you'll never get back with them.
Yeah. So thank you, Catherine. I think what Donita, the main message there, I try to sum things up to make it quicker, but is really just using this as an opportunity to take some time with your kids. Don't stress out about, the schoolwork. If you do much as you can on Monday, and then if you have to catch it up on Tuesday, then you do that. And if you have, she's saying she has two different age kids. So a seventh grader, and then I think a third grader, I think is what she said. And she said, they need to learn differently, either a different pace or learning style. And so just doing what you can, how you can, rather than worrying about, how much of it's getting done, might be a better way to approach it. So it's not so overwhelming. And I think did I get that okay, Catherine?
Yes.
Is that a good? Yeah, I did. Okay. She said I did. I did good. Yay.
And I have a 3-year-old.
Gold star.
Yeah. And then she has a 3-year-old too. So, yeah. Wow, you got your hands full, Catherine. I don't know if I can answer that question like that. I'm going to let that one just go ahead and go. Y'all go. Let's go to the next question. That was a great answer.
She's knocking it out of the park.
She did great. That's.
What are some of the things we can do to kill, especially preteens and teenagers have a hard time expressing their feelings. They kind of bottle them all up. What kind of things can we do to help them express how they're feeling during this time?
Sure. And I'll take this first part if that's okay, Catherine. But
all right. I don't know what happened. We got kicked off. Hold on. I'm letting people know that we're on another live. Live. Got kicked off. Okay. I don't know what my question was.
Your question was about teens and how did you ask that? I think it's something about how do we talk to the teenage kids and the preteen kids, something to that event.
Yes, the kids that are struggling to, they're not even struggling. They just, are bottling up their feelings, and not just the preteens, but, kids that maybe are younger, like your 3-year-old, Catherine, that, just don't even know how to express themselves. What kind of things can we do to help them to tell us how they're feeling? Other than just like straight up asking them, maybe. She's frozen again.
She's frozen. I'll go ahead and start if it's okay.
Okay, sure.
One of the things that I've learned this actually from. Yeah, can you go ahead, Catherine, if you're back?
No, I didn't hear the end of the question.
She did not hear the end of the question, Donita.
Oh, I was just saying that, any child, any age child that doesn't do a good job of expressing their feelings. So like if you're dealing with a younger child, like your 3-year-old, or, the preteens who just generally don't tell us much, how can we get them to express their feelings, and maybe not even verbally?
Did you hear that, Catherine?
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Okay, I'll go ahead. So one of the things I've learned from the therapists that work with the young kiddos in our practice is sometimes you can have them either play it, act it out, or draw it. Sometimes you can say, hey, draw a picture of what you're feeling right now. One of the questions I use, like with the preteens, is I'll use a scaling question. So I'll say something like, let's say 10 represents you feel completely confident and you're feeling really good about the situation. And a 0 is the opposite. You're very fearful, scared, not sure what you're feeling. That would be a 0. Where would you say things are for you right now? And that is a way of kind of measuring, and it gives them a chance to kind of go, where am I? Kind of their own gauge. So that's a way to kind of strike up a conversation about it. The problem is once you get an answer, it's like, what do I do with it? And if they say I'm a 1, what do you do? So it's ask them, well, how close to a 10 do they want to be? And then what would be the next number up? How would they know if they achieved a 2? Something like that would be a good way to do that. That's something we would do in therapy. So that's the way I would probably talk to my own kid is, where are you right now? Where would you like to be? And what would the next step for you look like? How would you know you were making progress toward that? And that's more of a solution oriented type of question that we would ask. And that's what I would do with my preteens. I think with my youngins, younger than that, I would use the example I just gave about the drawing a picture, or let's play this out and let's watch them interact. A lot of kids that are little, they like to play things out and act things out more than they like to talk about it because they may not have the words and the capacity to describe it. So that's why play therapists are so effective with littles, because they can do that so well. And I give them so much credit because I don't deal with the littles that well therapeutically. And it's just amazing what they can do with kids that age. So that would be the way that I would do that. Okay.
Catherine, do you have any input there? You want to add to
Okay.
that?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Donita, can you hear
Yes.
her?
So I think
I can. I can.
Go ahead, Catherine.
Okay. So I think, another way, and I think that was those questions, Michael. I think sometimes kids don't have the vocabulary to be able to share what they're experiencing. And so for the younger ones, about reading books with them and then just asking them, how would you, about, or how do you think the character is feeling? Have you ever felt that way? So asking them questions that goes along with the characters in the book, so that one so much for our older ones, really so much about being their but your risks, and that goes along with movies as well. So a family movie, and something happens on the show, really asking questions to their feelings out of what they might be experiencing. Sometimes too, for getting a lot of our teenagers their rooms. I know a lot of them like to spend time in their rooms, but getting them outside to allow you to help you, things around the house, so that way they're more open to able to share with you what their experiences are. I think definitely too.
Yeah, so good. Are there any resources that maybe probably online that you would recommend for kids and for adults to receive emotional support and mental wellness check? Is there any hotline that they can call or website that they can go to just kind of if they're not doing okay? Mom and dad, grandparents, whoever.
That's a great question, Donita. I haven't personally looked into that. I haven't been asked yet either, so I guess that's probably what's limited my time to do that. And I'll be honest, I've taken advantage of this time with my own family and kids. One of the places we use in Tarrant County a lot is called the Warm Place. They're a grieving center. I would wonder if maybe reaching out to them and seeing how they're approaching this process might be a start. I know there's hotlines that MHMR has. You can even just look that up online. I know Lena Pope had a hotline, which is a social service agency here in Tarrant County. Catholic Charities was another place that people could reach out to. And anyone that has a hotline would probably be a good first step because they'll have some mental health professional of some sort or mental health tech that usually might call you back or even answer the call if you have specific questions in regards to mental health or if you're not doing very well. Other resources outside of that, I'm not sure. I know the schools, at least the school my kids go to, they're sending out resources via email they're blasting the families, educational resources, good reading, things to do with your kids, some ideas.
Right.
So maybe getting in touch with someone at the school, if it's a school counselor, if it's a teacher, they may be a good, kind of the front lines people might be a good first step for you and the families.
Mm-hmm. Catherine, do you have anything to add to that?
I don't know if he's already mentioned this because it was going in and out, but looking at your website, that's a big help because there's lots of resources on there for your community. Another one that ISIS might I'm not sure if you shared this or not, but there's a crisis text line if you find this HOME, where you're experiencing any crisis, any type, they will connect you to a real life human being that's able to help you in that situation at this time. And then, of course, definitely utilizing 911 if you're to do that as well.
Michael, did you hear all of that? Because it broke up. You didn't? Okay.
Yeah, it broke up a little bit too. I think I heard the first part about checking the websites, which I think was great information. Look at your school's website. There's a lot of people putting stuff up on the internet, so just check it out, take a look. That might be a good first step too. Everyone's having to use their digital resources right now.
And she said crisis tech. Is that what she said?
Yes, I think that's what she said, but I didn't recall. I think that's where she was breaking up.
Okay, we will. I'll check with Catherine and get all of these resources now on schooldayshow.com. And I would also say, reach out to your local churches, either by phone or by their website. And even if it's not a local church, I mean, I can give you guys, my church is tcalchurch.com. They actually have on the bottom of the page a prayer request button. And in addition to just typing in your prayer request, you can also check a box that says, I want somebody to call me. And there's tons of people, apparently, I'm told, that are just kind of waiting to talk to people who feel like they're in crisis or that they need some help. So that's also a good resource, is churches are really going to be there for people, especially during these times.
That's great.
Hey, Catherine, can you hear us?
You now.
I think she froze up.
The one thing that I didn't catch, and I think might have been frozen, was you said crisis tech. Is that what you said?
Yes, the crisis text line. If they text home,
I'm not hearing her. You mean text her and see?
No, actually, I can hear her.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, repeat all that again.
Okay, so if they'll text home, HOME, to 741-741, they will connect you to a real life human being that's a trained crisis counselor. So the crisis text line allows you just to text, questions throughout the 24/7. There's a counselor that's available to you. But if you're in the midst of a real life crisis, then definitely the home to that 741-741 number, and they'll connect you to a live human being.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I will get all these resources up on schooldayshow.com so that everybody can access them. We are out of time. You guys have been amazing, and thank you all everybody that's listening, because this is, you guys.
Yes, thanks.
Fared well with us. We appreciate that. Hopefully next week it won't be like this, but I don't know. It just might be. We're in uncharted territories here. So anyway, Catherine and Michael, thank you guys so much for your time. This has been wonderful.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
So Noggin Educational Foundation is the premier sponsor of School Days. So we always want to let you guys know what's happening with Noggin. Our mission is to help close the achievement gap for economically disadvantaged children by improving educational opportunities for students, supporting families, and encouraging excellence and innovation in the classroom. School Days is part of our commitment to support families by providing access to experts who offer information and resources regarding all topics that impact education. If you love this program, please consider donating to Noggin. Your gift will be tax deductible. Head to our website, schooldayshow.com, to give today. Next week on School Days, I'll sit down with Dr. Stephanie Al Oteba, Professor of Teaching and Learning at Southern Methodist University and the editor of the Journal of Learning Disabilities. She will give an overview of learning disabilities, what to look for, and how you can get the help that your child needs. So don't forget to share that with your parent friends. And as always, head to our website, schooldaysshow.com, for more information about all that we're doing and for the resources mentioned on School Days. And remember, you don't ever have to miss a show. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, and pretty much anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Noggin Foundation. And last but never least, we always want to end the show by saying that David and I are parenting by grace. We depend on God to give us the wisdom and strength that we need to raise our kids into flourishing adults. And if you would like to know more about that, please feel free to email me at info@schooldaysshow.com. Have a great week and stay safe.